Welcome to Reality Hunt Club. I got somebody I want y'all to meet tonight. Dad, do the honors. Show me who you got, Dad. Get down there.
I got Mr. Sway.
Introduce him, buddy. Who is that?
This is Mr. Sway. You've been hunting him for...
It's Sway.
Slay.
Sway.
Sway. You've been hunting him for 4 years. You've been looking at him?
No. I want to thank Mr. Andrew Tadpole Laney. He brought the dogs. Dogs did a great job tracking, went right up to him. So that's the one. I've been trying to get him. I had him 25 yards bow season. Had a deer underneath me, couldn't get him.
Look at that rat.
That's a good one, buddy. Sway's dead. That's one of the ones we've had for 4.5 years. Had him as a year and a half underneath the feeder. Had him last year. Nobody could kill him last year. So, whoo. Don't have any video of the hunt. Dad didn't have a camera. I was hunting on about 400 yards away. Didn't quite work out for me, but I've seen him over there 4 times, just too dark to shoot. I'm gonna show you some of that video footage. So let's recap the history of Sway and get Tadpole to help us out. We'll get some better pictures of him tomorrow. So that's the end of his chapter. As far as I'm concerned, that's the #1 deer on my Reality Hunt Club series. We've got more pictures, more video, more history with that one deer right there. And I'm so glad my dad killed him. It's gonna look good on the wall. It's just as good. The only thing could have been better is if my 12-year-old would have killed him, but I'm so glad you killed him, Dad.
Thank you. I'm glad I did too.
I appreciate all the times you took me hunting. I'm just so glad the last 3 years, this is the 3rd big buck he's killed in 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to give back to him for taking me in all these years. First night, first evening, we ain't been up here 2 hours and he connects. Congratulations, Dad.
Thank you.
So let's go back. So for now, I'm gonna go back over the history of this deer, and we'll probably have some video for you tomorrow. So stay tuned and let's go look back over what Sway does. Now you just watched the video of us recovering Sway. Now, Sway had a tendency to come out right at dark. I'd had a few encounters, 4 to be exact, with him, and just too dark to shoot. Well, the same happened to my dad. I told him that it was a 50-50 shot we'd have him that night. He'd been either coming to the Y, which is where my dad was hunting, or the Ridge is where I've been hunting. And so I told him that it was a good shot. We were going to get him at night, but it was going to be at dark. And Sway came out and went to the food plot, and then he went to the feeder, and Dad could tell it was a big deer, but he just couldn't tell if it was Sway or not. And then right before it really got dark, Sway started walking straight to where Dad's stand was. And we have just moved a plastic pool there that holds water, and he actually walked up into that pool and stuck his head down in there, and when he stuck his head down there, it was black, and it had contrast between the antlers and the black pool. And of course, the full moon was starting to come on this week, you know, the rutting moon. And Dad could see how big it was and realized it was Sway, and it was only about a 45-50 yard shot. So Dad shot him, and when he shot him, he ran off into the woods, and Dad thought he went straight. And apparently what happened was he ran in there and then cut 90 degrees and ran that way. So we found a couple drops of blood. So we got concerned, and we called Andrew Laney, and he brought his dogs out. And I was saying, Andrew, Dad said the deer went that way, and the dogs went down there and cut 90 degrees and went straight to the deer. And Andrew said, nope, your deer's over there. We walked over there, and you saw the video of the recovery, and we were just ecstatic about it. So I was really happy for my dad to kill that deer. Now, the rest of this video, I wanted to go over some history that we had with Sway. Now, we've had him, you know, one thing about our club, the first 3 years of the club, we didn't have enough food, so we never really had bucks live on our club. They always go off a mile or a mile and a half and live on the agriculture during the summer, and during the rut, they would come into our club chasing the does. Well, we started planting 15 to 20 acres of food plots in the spring, and sure enough, Sway was one of the first 2 deer we had on our property. And I'm showing you now is some pictures that we had of him back in the 2009-2010 season. And the reason I know it's him as a 2.5-year-old is because he's hanging out with this other deer that I was fortunate enough to kill last year. And that deer was No Brow Jr. These are the first 2 bucks that we could consistently get pictures of from May all the way up to hunting season. And that's how I knew it was Sway, because he had some characteristics of his antlers, but he didn't have any brow times. But I'm 100% sure this is Sway just by who he's hanging out with. Now, in the 2010-2011 season, we were fortunate enough to get a series of photos of Sway from May until September. It actually documented how much his antlers was growing and just showed you the progress as they were growing during the summer. One thing we learned about him, he really likes to put on his antlers in the month of June. And you're going to see that in the next series of photos. But this is amazing to us because we never watched a deer antler grow over a time period, like a time-lapse camera. I mean, you could tell when he started growing and when he rubbed out, and these photos just captured it. And he was a nice 3.5-year-old deer in these photos, but nobody saw him or anybody had an opportunity at him. Now, he dropped his antlers in February of this year, 2011, as you can see in these photos. Now, this is the 2011-2012 series of photos. And as you watch it, you know, this first time we looked for those antlers, we couldn't find them. But as you can see, those knobs are red, those pedicles. Now, we didn't get as good of pictures as we did the previous year as to watching his antler growth. He seemed to have a larger territory and seemed to move around. But as you can see, on June 16th, he's already got quite a impressive rack in June. Some deer like to put it on in July. Some deer like to put it on in June. And it's just cool to be able to have a deer you can monitor like this. It almost makes it like personalization of an animal, you know. But as you can see, he's out in our soybean field. He enjoyed them soybeans. Of course, he enjoyed our corn feeders, as you can see in these photos. And, you know, as always, when you check your trail camera, you always expect it to have a series of photos of him. And just really cool. And one thing about it is he started hanging out with that little buck right there. Now, I'd killed No Brow Jr., his 4.5-year-old hanging buddy last year. And then the next thing you know, he starts hanging out with this guy. And every photo, he's with that little 2.5-year-old buck. So, just interesting to see. Now, one thing when I started Reality Hunt Club, this series, I had no idea that a deer would become my co-star. Sway was such an impact on everything we did on our management practices that he started getting his own webisodes, and we just always started talking about him and his antler growth. And one thing, we did an end of the year trail camera survey back in January, and he was all over the bait piles. I mean, he was so much on the bait piles that we actually could track his movement by hour and by the day and by the hour. What I mean by that was he'd be at one feeder or one bait pile at 8 o'clock. He'd be at a different one at 9 o'clock. And it allowed us to put this video together that I'm fixing to show you right now. And I sped it up to where you actually can see his pattern and his travel corridor. And I actually used that to hunt him, and my dad killed him on one of the fringes of this travel corridor, and you know, due to the intelligence of the photos we were getting then. And it's just really cool to see him walking back and forth during this time period of 2 weeks. Now, my graphics aren't that great, but you get the point as to what kind of core area that he was traveling. And we've never been able to do that with a deer. And I was able to make a webisode of this and bring that to you guys. Now, another thing is you notice this feeder motor, the paint's gone. Well, one thing we discovered was we go up there and Sway was licking the corn off the top of the feeder that was left over. And as you can see in this photo here, he's at the feeder. And he's got his head up there and he's licking it off. You could walk up to the feeder and the feeder actually would smell. The motor would smell. And it's because of the bacteria or bad breath. You know, he wasn't using scope or anything like that. But it was just cool to watch him go up there and lick it off. And I didn't realize until the other day that the paint's gone. And he actually licked the paint off our feeders. So I thought that was real cool. So he also allowed us to use some new trail cameras by Moultrie to be able to do video. And boy, doing videos of Sway really gave the deer more personality, as you can see in these video clips right here from the actual trail cameras. So this actually closes the chapter on sway, which is a very productive chapter in our quality management for this hunting club. And my dad always says, I'm sorry I shot him. You miss him so much. And that's not the case. I'm so glad he shot him. And I'm so glad that he shot him and he's going to be on the wall. I'll always be able to look at him on his house, at his house. It's just awesome that 4.5-year-old deer made it that far and we were able to watch him. And here are some pictures of my dad and myself. And it, like as I said in the post interview, it just doesn't get any better like that, sharing it with your father, especially many times as he took me hunting. So thanks for watching Reality Hunt Club. I hope you enjoy this. I wish we would have got the kill shot on there, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you can follow us on Facebook. You can go in there and like us. And you also can follow us on Twitter. The information is on the website. You also can leave us comments on YouTube. Come leave us some comments. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And, of course, you can always email me personally at toxicgivens@gmail.com. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching Reality Hunt Club.